And sticking with the Sydney Morning Herald, it's also featuring a profile of former FBI Director Robert Mueller, who has died at the age of 81. And for more on that story and a few others making headlines today, we are joined by author and former diplomat Ian Kemish in the studio. Lovely to have you.
Really nice to be with you.
Let's stick with the death of Robert Mueller. Remind us what he did as the FBI Director and then also after that role as well.
This is a man who was appointed as FBI Director just prior to the September 11 attacks back in 2001. He refocused that organisation on combating and preventing terrorism. He went after the perpetrators with some degree of success. He reshaped a really important instrument in the American justice system. But the deeper background, you know, he was a Marine who led troops in combat in the Vietnam War. He was a public servant alongside a generation that was forged amidst war and conflict and, you know, serious threat against the US state. He's an extraordinary figure, a Republican, and he was also employed by the Democrat side, so a bipartisan figure, but with Republican roots. Really important character in recent history.
He sounds like, you know, the upright American hero, you know, given his background and what he's done for the justice system as well. What do you make of President Trump's tweet this morning celebrating his death?
It's extraordinary. It's really difficult to even try and summarise what he's said. It's so repugnant, frankly. He essentially has said, "Good, glad he's dead," and this is, of course, because Robert Mueller was appointed to look into the links between the Trump campaign and Russia, and, you know, he came to a certain set of findings. A job he was asked to do, a job he did for his country. Look, you know, tone matters in this world. It is a question of civic norms. Thank goodness we haven't quite got to the point in Australia where that kind of thing would even be contemplated or tolerated, but I do think we need to be guarding against it. And for the leader of the largest economy in the world to be speaking in this way, I find very, very disappointing.
Let's move along into this article in the AFR. The Strait of Hormuz remains blocked, but Iran is letting a handful of ships through. Who is Iran letting through?
Chinese-owned and registered vessels clearly have been allowed through an additional channel that goes through Iranian territory. There are also reports that Malaysian, Indian, Pakistani and now even Japanese authorities are talking to Iran about the potential for access. It's sort of interesting, you know, we might say that the Straits of Hormuz are closed, but perhaps they're selectively closed. It conjures up a picture of a bifurcated world in which, you know, some countries are able to obtain ready access to Middle Eastern oil at in a relative sense, discounted price, whereas others, those whose politics and alignment link them more closely with the United States, are vulnerable to the inflation shocks, or the additional cost of living pressures that we're seeing today here in Australia. And you know, I don't think the world needs much encouragement to split into competing blocs, but you know, if you take the logic here only a little bit further, it does suggest that we're even more heading in that direction.
The bipartisanship of the world and its politics as well. We want to move on to the Wall Street Journal, and they're talking about a story that we've been covering as well. Iran has hit the UK-US military base on the Indian Ocean military facility, the Diego Garcia military base. What's interesting is that 10 Downing Street has sort of said, well, we're not getting involved in this, even though Iran has hit that base. What do you make of that?
There's a real significance here. The strikes may not have landed, but I think the message will have landed in Western capitals, including in Europe. This is Iran demonstrating a capability that no one really thought they had. The understanding has been that their range was limited to about 2,000 kilometres. This is 4,000 kilometres. You extend that across in the direction of Europe, and you're including in your envelope Southern and Central Europe, places like Athens. And I think from a planning point of view, it sent a very clear message, and I suspect that that's what it's been all about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ian, before we let you go, we have to mention your recently released book
yes.
called Two Islands. Now, on the cover here, it says, from the one and only Trent Dalton, utterly captivating global intrigue with heart. Tell us about this book.
Trent is a very good friend, and he's a very nice man. Look, this is a book about human kindness, about goodness. It's a book which talks about people taking hidden trauma into peaceful places, hidden history into peaceful places. It draws a bit on my time as a relatively young diplomat in my 30s, working Bosnia and Croatia during the war there. But it also, the peaceful place is the Scottish Hebrides, which is my mother's country, if you like, and this is where my troubled souls assemble. It also takes you back to the 1990s, a time when the world might have been just as complicated, but in the case of former Yugoslavia, the West actually did gather together and work in a very direct, collaborative way to bring the conflict to an end and to establish the organisation which ultimately became the International Criminal Court. So it's all of that. But thanks for asking.
This is your second book, but your first fiction, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Was that difficult to turn your mind to fiction?
Not as difficult as I expected. There's a creative freedom that comes with fiction, but also if you're writing about a period of time, you really still need to make sure you're absolutely accurate and that your facts are straight, because this does pull pretty heavily on reality. So it's not quite as freeing as you might expect.
Congratulations.
Congratulations
Thank you. That's nice
once
of you.
again. And thank you so much for coming in and chatting with us, Ian.
Great.